Greetings, dear viewer, and welcome to Purposes Crossed, where I hope that people who are called by Jesus for different purposes cross paths and exchange ideas. In this video, we continue with our series of reflections on the Sermon on the Mount. We have reached a place in the sermon where Jesus tells his disciples how to navigate various oppressive situations. In the previous video, we looked at Jesus' words about giving our cloak to the person who insists on taking our coat as a pledge. In the video before that, we looked at Jesus' words about turning the other cheek. In both cases, we saw that Jesus was giving his disciples a way of challenging oppressive situations that recovered their dignity while forcing a change in the oppressor in non-violent ways. The third example of systemic injustice that Jesus addresses is from Roman law. Imperial law allowed legionaries to force natives of occupied territories to carry their load for 1 mile. However, in order to keep the conquered people from revolting, the law prohibited a soldier from forcing someone to carry the load for more than a mile. Soldiers who were caught ignoring this prohibition were severely punished. It is here that Jesus comes in and says that if a Roman soldier forces a person to carry his load, that person should insist on carrying the load beyond the first mile. The conquered person thus seizes the initiative. Imagine how humiliating it would be for a Roman soldier to beg to have his bag returned. He would be constantly looking around to see if any of the secret police were around and had noticed the native person was carrying the load beyond the first mile. In the presence of other conquered people, he would beg the person he forced to carry his bag to return the bag, lest he face the severe punishment imposed on those who disobeyed the prohibition. What has happened is that the conqueror has been conquered, and the vanquished now calls the shot. No longer could a Roman soldier claim superiority over Jews simply because he could force a Jew to carry his load. Certainly not after begging the Jew to return his property. In these three examples, Jesus reveals himself as an extremely creative person, and we should keep this in mind. Just as the three situations do not cover the gamut of human oppression, so also the instructions he gives do not provide solutions for all circumstances. He gives us models of creativity and invites us to join him in creatively disarming the oppressor through nonviolent means. The primary goal is to recover the dignity of both the oppressed and the oppressor. Jesus aims at restoring proper relationships between the parties involved. By taking systemic injustice to the extreme, we reveal the system as unjust and leave the oppressor with no way of justifying the injustice. The final word in verse 42, of course, is subtly directed at the person who is in the position of taking advantage of another. The person has enough assets for someone to beg from him or her. Jesus tells such a person to be generous. Having outlined creative solutions to three situations of oppression, the implication is plain. If a person is in the position of taking advantage of another and acts on it, he or she will have to face such responses as outlined by Jesus, responses that are aimed at exalting the poor and humbling the rich. With such a warning, who would willingly choose to disobey Jesus? If Jesus' disciples would only follow his example from verses 38 to 41, they would dissuade any would-be oppressor. Once again, it is important that we recognize that Jesus has not given us the full gamut of oppressive situations that we can encounter. He has given us models only, in three situations only. Now, today we do not have a restriction on using the left hand in public, nor a marked difference in perception between a slap of the palm and a backhanded slap. Neither do we face a situation where we pledge our clothes to secure a loan, and soldiers today do not have the right to force the conquered people into labor. So, if you look at it that way, Jesus' words in these three situations are quite irrelevant to us today. However, the principle of overcoming oppression non-violently is still quite relevant. We need to use our imaginations in the oppressive situations that we face. We need to prayerfully determine what non-violent course of action would restore our dignity and the dignity of the one oppressing us. And we must aim at restoring the dignity even of the oppressor, because he or she is also made to bear the image of God in this world.